Girivaradari Jaya Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachariyam Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasa Tato Jayamudhirayed. Hare Krishna. So English. Everybody speaks English? Wer spricht kein Englisch? So, deutsche Übersetzung ist mit Subal Gopal Prabhu bei Kishori Kund. Wir lesen aus dem we're reading from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 18. Prithu Maharaj milks the earth planet, verse, was it 25 or 24? 25, 26. So which one is there? Sarvesva or Vatavatsa? So text 25. Vatam Vatsam vanaspatayah Pritak Rasamayam Payah Girayo Himavat Vatsa Nana Dhatun Svam Sanushu Vatavatsa Vanaspatayah Pritagrasamayam Payah Girayo Himavat Vatsa Nanadhatum Svasa Sanushu Vatavatsa Vanaspatayah Pritagrasamayam Payah Girayo Himavat Vatsa Nanadhatum Svasanushu. Ladies. Word by word translation. Bhattavatsaha, making the banyan tree a calf. Vanapatayaha, the trees. Pritak, different. Rasamayam, in the form of juices. Payaha, milk. Girayaha, the hills and mountains. Himavadvatsaha, making the Himalayas the calf. Nana, various. Dhatun, minerals. Swam, own. Sanushu, on their peaks. Translation. Later purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The trees made a calf out of the banyan tree, and thus they derived milk in the form of many delicious juices. The mountains transformed the Himalayas into a calf, and they milked a variety of minerals into a pot made of the peaks of hills. Text 26. Sarvesva mukhya vatsena sve sve patre pritakpayaha sarvakama dugdham pritvim duduhu prituh pavitam. The planet Earth supplied everyone his respective food. During the time of King Prithu, the earth was fully under the control of the king. Thus, all the inhabitants of the earth could get their food supply by creating various types of calves and putting their particular types of milk in various pots. Purport. This is evidence that the Lord supplies food to everyone. As confirmed in the Vedas, Eko bahunam yo vidadhati kamam. Although the Lord is one, He is supplying all necessities to everyone through the medium of the planet Earth. There are different varieties of living entities and different planets, and they all derive their eatables from their planets in different forms. On the basis of these descriptions, how can one assume that there is no living entity on the moon? Every moon is earthly, being composed of the 5 elements. Every planet produces different types of food according to the needs of the residents, its residents. According to the Vedic Shastras, it is not true that the moon does not produce food or that no living entity is living there. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Gyanangjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Milhitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sriyuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Once again the verses. Vattavatsa vanapataya pritakrasam payaha girayo himavadvatsa nanadhatum svasanushu. The trees made a calf out of the banyan tree, and thus they derived milk in the form of many delicious juices. The mountains transformed the Himalayas into a calf, and they milked a variety of minerals into a pot made of the peaks of hills. Sarvesvamukya vatsena svesve patre pritakpayaha sarvakama dugdham pritving duduh pritu bhavitaham. The planet Earth supplied everyone his respective food. During the time of King Prithu, the earth was fully under the control of the king. Thus, all the inhabitants of the earth could get their food supply by creating various types of calves and putting their particular types of milk in various pots. Hare Krishna. So we're reaching now the end of this section, where basically, and for many people it might seem a little bit abstract at one point, how this is possible, how it's working. That there's all kinds of different sections of the planets. You know, here we have the Himalayas, we have the mountains, we have the trees, we heard about the four-legged animals, the birds, tigers, everybody, all of these different groups of living entities, they created a calf that would motivate Mother Earth to supply milk. So this is the main formula that was followed. It is well known that a cow gives more milk if she has a calf. She is very inclined to give milk to her calf. So by this formula, all kinds of different living entities made a calf to receive a very specific type of milk. So in this sense, milk is here not just the white substance with a lot of calcium, but it's basically this Bhumi Devi is like similar like a Surabhi cow. She's supplying anything that people actually need. So for the mountains, she's supplying dhatum, all kinds of different minerals. For the trees, she's supplying rasam, all kinds of different juices, and so on and so forth. So everybody received what they required and needed. And Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing that this is the proof that the Lord supplies for everyone. Eko bahunam yo vidati kamam. There's one eko, one source from which everything is supplied to everyone. Also, this one person, while being independent, everybody is dependent on him. And here Srila Prabhupada then goes on to say that all the necessities that everybody might need in any planet are supplied by that specific planet. So depending on which planet you live, there is a different type of food, different forms, different planets, different eatables, Prabhupada is saying here. And then he asked the question, how can one assume that there is no living entity on the moon? So this is the interesting question now. How can one assume that there is no living entity in the moon? So what would you say? Any suggestions? Okay, so maybe it's not physical, that we can touch it. Maybe it's more subtle. Okay. How else? What is the logic behind this, that there is not only life on this planet? Subal? So there's no water. Even the ISRO, Indian Space Organization, has claimed they found some ice in the south pole of the moon. Yes.
You say that we have limited sense perception. So it's like our eyes can see just certain frequencies of colors. Our ears can hear just certain frequencies. So it could be beyond our sense perception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is also good. Yes. So maybe they didn't go to the moon. Maybe it was all shot in Arizona, in a studio. This is also a theory, yes. But there's there's one book, of course, one of the first books Srila Prabhupada, or maybe is it the first book Srila Prabhupada wrote, Easy Journey to Other Planets. We have an original copy in this box there in the back from Srila Prabhupada, small booklet, first book that he published, Easy Journey to Other Planets. So what is the main argument Srila Prabhupada uses there? Maybe somebody knows. Yes, so we need so Prabhupada says, similar like when you want to go to a different country, you go to the embassy, and you apply for a visa, and then you might get a visa, then you can enter. If you have no visa, you might be rejected at the border. So in a similar way, he's saying that not only it's not necessary to, or you could say the proper path to go to other planets is not by rockets. So not by rockets, because that's of course the main attempt, that is being done now. Shri Prahlad Lakshmani Singh Bhagavan ki jai. The main attempt is by rockets. So NASA, and now of course we have SpaceX, Elon Musk, very famous. He's promising, to very soon have a Mars colony, SpaceX Mars colony. But the title says "Easy Journey to Other Planets." You know? So, because rocket science is not easy, you know, it's also quite expensive, you know? And also very few people can afford it. And then when you reach the moon or when you reach Mars, you need to have an artificial atmosphere so you can survive there, you know, basically. So you create a, you know, like a space suit, you know. Within this space suit you have oxygen and temperature, which is similar to what we have here on Earth, and therefore you can survive. Otherwise you could not survive, you know, on the moon, just if you would just, you know, take off your suit, then it would be over. You know? And similarly in Mars, you know, the gravity is different, everything is different. So what is the proposition Srila Prabhupada is making? If not by rockets, then how? Yoga. Yoga. What does it mean? What do you mean by yoga? Huh? So connection to other planets. Yeah, but spiritual practice is to go to the spiritual world. That's also, of course, that's the ultimate planet. But how do we travel if we don't travel by rockets? Huh? By the mind, like an astral journey. You meditate on the moon and then... Arjuna went to the heavenly planets. So how did he do it? So Arjuna's example is, of course, it's an exception, and also he's an exceptional personality. He's the son of Indra, so his father himself, you know. So he had a good connection, you know. If your father is the president of America, you probably can get an easy visa, you know. Even if you're living somewhere else, you know. But no, the simple answer is by reincarnation, you know. So by reincarnation we can travel to other planets. You know? So there's no need to build a rocket, you know? And what you said is partially true. Not only by the mind, but by the chittas. You know? So we have the 5 mahabhutas, the 5 external gross elements. They are bound to the atmosphere you are born into. You know? This body we have here is, you know, an earth body. You know, good to live on planet Earth. But the subtle body, the chitta, means manas, ahankara, and buddhi. These 3 items together are the subtle body. And the subtle body is not dependent on external elements, you know. Or you could also say, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, nahanyate nahanyamane sharire. When the body is killed, the soul is not killed. But not only the soul is not killed, also the chittas remains, you know. Basically, when you die, what dies is only the external gross body made out of 5 elements. And what remains is the Atma, the soul, the person, you, surrounded by chittas, by consciousness, you know, which is made out of false ego, intelligence, and the mind. You know? So with this, you could say astral body, you know, or subtle body, you can travel anywhere, you know. And we travel all the time, you know. Whenever we die, we travel, you know, across God knows what distances, to which places, which planets or which area. Wherever you have to be reborn, you travel with the subtle body. You know? And the subtle body is not bound like the gross body, and is also not dependent, you know, on the 5 elements. And I've explained a few times this, but this is very interesting because Srila Prabhupada also talks about it in the Easy Journey to Other Planets. He says that depending on the planet, you can get a body which fits that planet. You know? So if you think a little bit further, that means that our body must be in composition similar to the planet we live in. You know? So this planet has a lot of water and earth. You know? So our body also, you know, is mainly water and some earth. You know? Some fire is also there. You know, digestion fire, and air is also there for all the movements we make. We need prana, apana, udana, for stability, for equilibrium. We also need air. But if you're born in a different planet, the composition of your body must be different. You know? So, Srila Prabhupada says, for example, you can be born in the sun planet. You know? So if you're born in the sun, then your body cannot be made mainly out of water, because that would evaporate, you know, very fast. You know? So that means your body, or you can assume that the body of Surya Deva must be mainly of fire, you know, and then you can survive. You know? There's also maybe there must be some water, some of the other elements, but in a different proportion. You know? So, and this we can also see also within our planet. There's a few examples of living entities that live in atmospheres that are unlivable for humans. You know? So there's two examples I always give, and I guess I'll have to repeat it many times, but it's always funny to hear. And there's the fire beetles. You know, this is fire beetles, like an insect, and this insect can live and walk on lava. You know, I forgot exactly which. Maybe it's Iceland. Maybe I forgot where it was, but it's some, you know, place where there's a lot of volcanoes. You know, this beetle can crawl on lava and it doesn't burn, it doesn't die. So for most living entities, you know, lava means death. You know, fire, you know, kills all kinds of bacteria and microbes. You know, but this beetle has a body which has a lot of fire elements, so it can survive in lava. You know, or also there are many plants that survive in, you know, in hot boiling water. You know, there's many parts of the planet in the deep sea or many mountain areas. There's like hot springs. You know, boiling hot water is coming out of the earth. And some plants can survive, you know, in hot boiling water. You know, usually when you cook water, you kill. You know, if you want to purify water, you heat it up, and then bacteria will die. You know? Or there are the deep sea fish. You know, in the depths of the ocean, there are this I once went to like an aquarium, I think it was in New Zealand somewhere, it was in New York, the very famous museum in New York near the Central Park, and they had this huge exhibition on all kinds of different fishes. You know, they had even a whale, a small one, and a big statue of the biggest whale on the planet. You know, and then they had the deep sea fishes. You know, in the dark room, and this fish, they are translucent. And they have light bulbs, you know, like small LED lights, you know, and like they look like cyberpunks, you know, and they live 11,000 meters below sea level, you know. So when the first scientists went there, you know, in the Mariana Trench and other areas which are quite deep, they were sure there's nothing there, you know, because even their submarine almost was crushed by the pressure which was down there, you know. So dark, you know, and isolated, but there was a big party, you know. All the fishes, all these deep sea fishes, easily survive down there. So their body is mainly basically just water, you know, translucent, and there is some fire there. They have some light, you know, so they can see in the dark, you know, down there. So nature provides, according to the atmosphere, a fitting body. You know? So we are very, well, maybe not we, but our science, material science, has the tendency to presume that they already know. You know? But again and again, scientists have been proven wrong. You know? And this is one very famous example. They were sure there's no life. Life is not possible in the deep sea. You know? But when they went there was life actually. You know? So in a similar way, the understanding that we have is that the soul is sarvagata. It exists everywhere. You know? Souls, living entities, exist everywhere. You know? Just according to the atmosphere, their bodies will vary. You know? And what Prabhupada is also saying, that the planet then provides, according to, you know, the body you have, the food that you need. You know? And this is very interesting because when we read this entire list, what Bhumi Devi is supplying, she's supplying all kinds of things. Like, for example, mountains, you know. The mountains also need food, you know. Who taught? Mountains need food. So the mountains, they're eating datum, minerals, you know. That's the food for the mountains, datum. And we hear from the Puranas, and also, I'm not sure in the Vedic text directly, but we hear about different mountains that were alive, you know, that were even flying. You might have heard this, you know. Mountains at one point were flying, you know, and they were flying so much that at one point they were stopped because they were creating too much havoc, you know. So, yes, so if even mountains can be living entities, you know, then maybe we're looking for the wrong thing when we look for living entities, you know. Everything is alive, and there is life everywhere. And we can understand also, for example, if we go all the way to Satyaloka, we hear that the body of Brahma is basically pure intelligence, you know. So you need a body like that, you know, if you want to manage the entire universe, you know. Even managing like a temple like this, you know, it can sometimes give a lot of headache, you know, all kinds of difficulties and problems, and yes, so if I had a body out of, you know, pure intelligence, probably would be easier, you know. So Brahma has a body of pure intelligence, you know. He lives in Satyaloka. His body also lasts, you know, for a very, very long time, you know. As long as the universe exists, Brahma also lives. Also we hear in the Mahabharata and different areas descriptions of the Devatas, you know. The Devatas, they don't directly touch the floor, you know, it's described, you know. That's how you can recognize a Devata. They're actually not touching the floor. They're moving, and they might look at first sight like a human, but they're not touching the floor. They're actually, you know, levitating, you know. So it means their body is much more subtle, you know. It's not gross like ours, like pom, you know. And in Siddha Loka, we hear about living entities who can fly, you know. So they must have, you know, some element of air in their body, so they can fly without difficulty, you know. At will, they can fly with their own bodies. And actually, yeah, if we think about it, it's a reasonable proposition. It's not just, you know, something you have to believe, you know. It makes sense. There is a science behind it, you know. We have an elemental composition of our bodies, and different planets we know have different elemental predominances. You know, some planets are more fiery, some planets are more earthly, some planets are more watery, some planets are more gas-shaped. You know, I forgot which ones they say. I think Jupiter maybe, or Saturn, one of them, or maybe both, are mainly gas. It's not actually like a, you know, like we think of our planet, you know, like a solid rock with some water on it, but actually it's gas, you know, but it's a planet, you know. So, yes, very interesting. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada says here, every planet produces different types of food according to the needs of the residents. According to the Vedic Shastras, it is not true that the moon does not produce food, or that no living entity is living there. You know? So, of course, the moon topic is a big topic, but in short, we can say that when we talk about the moon, or when the Vedas talk about the moon, they talk about a celestial place, you know, where actually the demigods enjoy somarasa, you know, that's the main drink, you know. So not Yandelspurna beer, but somarasa, very high quality, you know, intoxicant. And there are even some recipes given in the Vedas, and some people are trying to figure out, you know, how to make somarasa, you know. And there are some speculations, you know, what it might be, the ingredients described. Because when we read the Puranas, actually there's a lot of botany, you know, botanical descriptions, you know. Like one of the most famous botanical descriptions in the Bhagavatam is the description of Mount Kailash. It's very, very nice. After this, in the previous, a few chapters before, when we heard the story of Daksha, at the end of the story, everybody wants to go and meet Shiva and see if he's, peaceful. They want to go with Brahma. So all the demigods together with Brahma, they go and want to, ask forgiveness from Lord Shiva. And they go through Mount Kailash, and there's the descriptions, like so many verses, all the different plants that were growing there, all the different trees, birds, animals, And for a good portion of them, there is a translation, but for many of those, words, just the same word is used again, So we don't really know what it is, but some plants, or some animals that we don't know, don't exist here anymore, or we have forgotten. So in a similar way, there are descriptions even for the ingredients of the somarasa, and probably it's because I saw some years ago one documentary where somebody was very serious about it, and they thought they found the recipe, what is somarasa. But if we study the Shastras, we more or less understand. Yeah, if you're on planet Earth, don't expect to be able to make somarasa, You will not find the ingredients to make somarasa on this planet, Somarasa is exclusive, in the heavenly planets, and probably there is relatively easy, to make somarasa, to get somarasa. So yes, the moon planet is therefore described as a place which is full of life. It's a place full of life. It's a place where the demigods enjoy, and it's not, like an ash, dusty, dead surface. So, therefore, the question is, Prabhupada said, they didn't go to the moon. If that's where they went, they didn't go to the moon. So that was the simple conclusion Srila Prabhupada drew. When they landed there. Of course, you can think on it in different ways, like somebody said, maybe it's very subtle, so maybe they landed on the planet, but they had not the eyes or ability to see what was actually going there. But Srila Prabhupada also once hinted that, this is not the moon, this is Rahu. So maybe they went to Rahu, who knows. But the main point we have here is that the Lord provides for everybody. Everybody is provided. And Srila Prabhupada emphasizes this very often, that we should not be too worried actually about our sustenance. Sometimes we are very worried about how I'm going to survive. I don't have a job. I'm not going to earn money. How I'm going to survive. Of course, if you live in a welfare state like Germany, you might be a little bit more at ease. Like I can always get some social help, Bürgergeld, But in general, the idea that Srila Prabhupada very often presents in his purports is that look at the big animals. There are big animals on the planet, like elephants, and they need, Prabhupada says, hundreds of kilos of food, every day, So, and it's there for them, they will manage to find it. Of course, they need to endeavor to get it. It will not come delivered. But it says in a similar way, if you live a, honest life and you are active, you will be supplied. Supply is there. And of course, Srila Prabhupada emphasized a lot self-sufficiency, actually, especially in the 4th canto. I'm not sure if it's still coming, but I think it's still coming. Or maybe it already was there when Prithu Maharaj, he was also famous for leveling the earth, and enabling large-scale agriculture. But in general, in the 4th canto, in a few areas, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes we should try to live directly from the land, from the country. And Prabhupada gives some very simple, practical examples that for us might seem a little bit, difficult, but it is ultimately it's true. Prabhupada says, if you need fire, you just go to the forest, collect some wood, and you can cook. Where is the problem? So for most of us, that's like, wait a second. I need to earn so much money. I need to buy, an apartment. In this apartment, I have to buy a big kitchen. I need to pay the electricity bill so I can cook. Or you have to pay, gas, whatever it might be. But in reality, it's true. Wood or also cow patties, actually a very good fuel. Are high quality fuel. And Srila Prabhupada even sometimes made this categorization, and he says, the best fire for cooking is cow dung fire, then wood, I think, then gas, then electricity, something like that. He made maybe a few times, hierarchy, which is the best. And when I went the first time to the Woodstock in Poland, there's a big Woodstock festival, or used to be. Now it's not so active anymore since Corona, but Narjuna Maharaj went there with a big group of devotees, 600 devotees or more, and they had these 2 gigantic pots, looked like rockets, like big rocket tips, like huge, just upside down. And if you want to cook for such a big amount of people, there's like 120,000 people, 125,000 plates, in 3 days, something like this. You cannot, electricity, gas, it's all not efficient, You just make a bonfire under each one of the pots, and you can cook a big amount, So sometimes we might think to cook with wood is primitive, but actually it's not, Like we have also our pizza oven outside, and you fire it once for 3 hours, and then for 3 days it's warm, And next morning it's still 300 degrees, then in the afternoon it's still 200 degrees. So you fire it once and you can cook for a few days, or bake. So, yes, this simple life, attached to the, like Chandramauli Maharaj has this book, I know some of you maybe bought it during the festival, and he called it the book Krishna's Way, Krishna's Way. And what he was emphasizing is what Prabhupada also very often says, but we should, like, also not only for our ultimate spiritual goal to attain Braja Bhava, to be a resident of Vrindavan, we can also externally, if you want to become a Braja Bhava, externally also start living like Krishna used to live, having cows, living in the countryside, it all helps, And I think once, many years ago, I read a lecture or heard a lecture of Mahanidhi Swami, and he was emphasizing this point very, very strongly. Now, at that time, I thought it was a little bit too much, maybe, but the point was still good. He was saying that, you want to achieve Braja Bhava, but you're living in a high-rise, you're living in a city, you're doing a normal job, If your meditation is good, maybe, but it's counterintuitive, So Prabhupada emphasized, if you really want to, practice spirituality, the best is to live in a countryside, to live in a farm, have cows, And I always remember this. In this connection, this story, there's a story of Kamsa, Kamsa decides to go himself to Braja, to kill Krishna, because he's sending so many demons to Vrindavan, they're all failing, so he's very frustrated, So he thinks, I have to do it myself, The moment he crosses Vrindavan, he transforms into a gopi, I don't know what's her name, Kamsini, maybe. And so she's comes as very surprised, confused with his new form, And immediately there's an elder gopi who engages. So, come here, gopi, let's make cow patties, And then Kamsa has to make cow patties, And there's this whole description, how Kamsa is, engaged, in very simple, menial, village gopi tasks, And he just runs away, too much, can't do it, So in a similar way, if we have this attitude of Kamsa, of course, he wanted to even kill Krishna. But I think the point is also still there, that Kamsa, was used to his, comfortable, palace, royal city life, and this village life of Vrindavan, he couldn't handle it, so he was not qualified, So in a similar way, if we want to achieve Braja Bhava, a fundamental part of it is living like people, like Krishna used to live, Krishna's way. So I haven't read the book yet from Chandramauli Maharaj, but you can tell from the cover page that it's about what Prabhupada said, what's something he started establishing but might still not be complete, is still not complete. Establishing more and more, rural communities where people actually live a rural life. Not to say that it's not possible, to attain Krishna consciousness by living in a city and, chanting. It is possible. But it certainly is very important to sometimes walk the bridge back. Kadambaka Maharaj always said, we have this Yukta Vairagya bridge, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj built, also Srila Prabhupada, where all kinds of different, modern amenities and, ways of transport and lifestyle in general were, adopted, machines, printing, microphones, live stream, whatnot, we adopted all of this in order to, serve Krishna, because everything can be used in the service of Krishna. But Kadambaka Maharaj used to emphasize this point, that sometimes we have to walk this Yukta Vairagya bridge, walk back, because Yukta Vairagya, sometimes it's difficult to see where do the natural qualities of Ugra Karma might overcome, our ability to actually connect everything with Krishna. So Kadambaka Maharaj is always making jokes like, I have my Mercedes-Benz Yukta Vairagya, for Krishna, and I have my alcohol-free beer Yukta Vairagya I'm offering to Krishna, and I have my, all kinds of things that, okay, you're using it, you're offering it to Krishna, your alcohol-free beer, but, it's mixed, obviously, it's your preferences which you are imposing, you could maybe even say, on Krishna, so it's not pure bhakti. So Kadambaka Maharaj always used to say, we should walk this bridge back, and that means, go back to the tradition, see what are the roots, simple life, sattvic life, and there's a few examples now in general in the world, but I've seen now a few communities even in India also, where it was not so common for a long time that devotees established farm communities, but a few devotees now have established farm communities, like very, very, you could say, primeval, like, very, very simple. They live, very far in the countryside, no electricity, build everything according to Vastu, and, have a gurukul there, and, do everything with bullocks, and have a lot of agriculture, So disciples of Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, some of them are doing that. And it's very powerful to see that it is possible, It is possible. Because one argument that sometimes people might bring is there's no space, The world is so crowded, there's no space, But in reality, the world is not so crowded. Prabhupada very often criticized or opposed the idea that we have an overpopulation. He said there's enough land, it just needs to be cultivated properly. And there is one a thought experiment that also was done that exemplifies this also very well, is that if you had a city with the density of New York, that would contain the entire world population, then the entire world population could fit in New Zealand. I think only the northern or southern island of New Zealand. In one of the New Zealand islands, one big city, the entire island, and the rest of the planet would be empty. Yeah? So the rest of the planet could supply food to this one city. It could work, in theory. So you're not overpopulated. Prabhupada very often said, you're not overpopulated. The question is, also in connection to the topic we have here, does Mother Earth feel good about you being on her surface? That's the main problem. Are we a burden to the planet, or are we supportive to the planet? Are we in harmony with the planet, or are we, alien, or behaving in a way that it's harmful to the planet? So that's the question we should rather ask ourselves. And Srila Prabhupada's answer was very clear, very often, that this modern civilization will not last very long. It will come crumbling. So it's all this high-risers, all of this. It's very temporary. It will come crumbling. It's also not time-tested. It's I don't know, maybe like the last 200-300 years. Once I saw, I don't know if you've seen this. Maybe there are these animations of a micro world. So it's like a small world, and then there's like everything happening really fast, So all the different, of course, they start with evolution, and then the dinosaurs come and they die, and then for a friction of a second, boom, there's high rises, and boom, they're gone again. in the history of the planet, So what Srila Prabhupada clearly proposes is that we should go back to, be more dependent on the land, be more, simple, in our demands to live and survive. And by this, we have, I say, financial security also. I recently saw this one very famous American thinker, or Canadian, I forgot his name now, but he posted recently a video, farming is the new revolution against the machine. And he's a quite famous thinker, like he has millions of followers, and he has a picture of himself with a fork and a cow, So if you want to rebel against the system, go to a farm. Because this is a true alternative, This is a true alternative. Everything else, can be used in Krishna service, but ultimately it is Ugra Karma, A very good example. I'm reading also a book now. It's called Digital Minimalism, Because we are so, used to having gadgets to be used, but they can very easily overcome us, And most people, don't have it under control, They control our lives actually, Our lives revolve now around the gadgets, We are so dependent on those gadgets. And so I haven't read the book finished yet, but his proposal is basically that if you don't follow digital minimalism, you're certainly, basically not living a healthy life. It's just unhealthy. So we can use everything in Krishna service, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, everything. But the pool that it has, is certainly very powerful, and easily, you get distracted, You start looking. I'm researching now the tractors we have in the farm, but then something else comes, something interesting about, what's happening in India and Pakistan, and then something else, and then very easily, you might be distracted, and a lot of time wasted also. So, yes, we can use everything in Krishna service, but if we don't, if we are controlled by this Ugra Karma, then it might not be fulfilling, the ultimate purpose. In another way, Srila Prabhupada put it is that we are using material amenities like the firefighters use fire to fight fire. And for a very long time, I didn't understand because I didn't know what he meant by that. Fighting fire with fire, how you're supposed to fight fire with fire. But it's true, you know, when there's a big fire, you know, one technique firefighters use is they make many small fires they can easily control around this big fire, and then the small fires take away the oxygen from the main fire, and they can turn off the main big fire, you know. So that's the idea, you know. We can use, you know, all kinds of items, you know, to fight material energy. But it's fire, you know. We're still playing with fire, you know. And that is very clear. Okay, I'll stop now. Maybe there are some questions, comments, anything you might want to add. Yes.
I just wanted to say, you said that it was really easy to just go in the forest, take some wood and then cook, but nowadays you even need to own this forest. So, and if you don't own the forest, you need to buy the forest, you need to have money.
Yes. Yes, I'm not saying that we live in all these compulsions that we think there is no way but through money, through property, through ownership, like that. But like in our specific case, we have a lot of forests, you know, and we like one there was what's his name, Tobias. He did a lot of wood many years ago here, and he came again. I think maybe 2 years ago he was here. And so since last time he was here, not much wood was cut out of our forests. So his estimate was that we have around 100 cubic meters of wood, you know, that we could harvest. So yeah. And yes. And most people, if you go and collect some fire for cooking, they will probably not mind, you know. And when we were living in Peru, I grew up in Peru in the countryside. We used to have a house, you know, it was on a hill. There was a river, a small rivulet coming down. This was our water supply. And we had a small forest. And that was our cooking. We cooked every day from this forest, you know. You know, we baked also, you know, no problem. You don't need too much wood, actually. Yeah, it might seem a little bit difficult, but it's just we're not used to it, you know. But actually simple is sublime, you know. And of course, we will not stop today, you know, we like cut electricity and we have to wash by hand everything, you know. But the reality is that, you know, some people made this time calculation. You know, to buy a washing machine or any machine that saves you a lot of time, you need to work for so many hours, you know. So very often, actually, the time you need to invest to get money to get this time saving, if you would do it directly, you would actually be faster. You know? So some people also, it depends how you think about it. Shri Shri Palalakshmi Singari Bhagwan Ki Jai. Gadadhar Prabhu, once from the Vedic Academy in Berlin, he was, they were discussing with Satyananda Maharaj many years ago in this schloss they had near Dresden, because they wanted to move somewhere else near Berlin, and they were just, it was just a brainstorming, but they were brainstorming what would be the ideal place we would want to have, you know. And I thought this brainstorming was very interesting, because the idea was basically we should have an area, you know, which is connected to the world, you know. We have all the amenities, you know. We have electricity, we have internet, we can communicate with the world. But also within this, we have an area which is completely free of all of this. So I thought this was an interesting idea also. So we could have like 2 areas, you know. There's like the entry area here, and then at the back, you know, the off-grid area. Yes. Sushila Mataji. Mm-hmm.
Do you see that it's coming soon, that we maybe it can put in reality the Vedic society, like what you just explained?
Well, the Vedic civilization is, Prabhupada says, like an elephant. It's always worth, now not anymore, but 100,000 rupees, you know, probably now more. But back then, you know, with 1 lakh rupees you could buy an elephant. And if it was dead or alive, the elephant always is worth 100,000 rupees. So Srila Prabhupada says, same as with Vedic culture, you know, when it was alive and fully, you know, manifested many years ago, It was very valuable, and now that it's dead, it's still valuable because the wisdom is there, the knowledge is there. And we believe that as the golden age of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu progresses, Srila Prabhupada says that the Satya Yuga can come again. You know? So, but that might take another few thousand years. We are 500 years, into the golden age. If we count by the birth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the beginning, we have still 4,500 years until the climax of this golden age is achieved, and then it will decrease again, and then after 10,000 years again, Kali Yuga will continue as it should be. So yeah, you can see things are improving, Andy. Actually, many people say everything is getting worse, but in reality, people are becoming more literate, people are becoming more healthy, people live longer lives, people are more compassionate, people are becoming more vegan, so many indicators are actually very positive, how the world is developing. Kali Yuga is also progressing in so many other ways, simultaneously, but at the same time there is a positive development as well. Yeah. Some people say it's like a scissor. So it's going more and more apart, become more and more extreme. Okay. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.